Okay, guys, thank you everyone for coming in and joining me today at this conference. So I'm Stefana Pesko. I work as a UA team lead on social channels at Product Madness. And this session is on developing a successful creative strategy for social channels. I'm going to cover a few things from testing to production to iterations to some examples. So I hope it's fairly interesting. To start off with a few things that I think we hear a lot in terms of creatives. So 70% of your success is your creative, something I hear a lot. 95% of your creatives fail, and about 20% of your creatives get almost all of your spend. Harsh numbers, I find them to be true. But then looking at something else, recent studies showed that users spend almost 7 hours, 6 hours and 58 minutes a day playing games on their screens. So you have about a third of their day to get them interested and excited about your app. Now, considering that your creative is the first impression that they have of your app, then you want to make sure you have a good game plan in order to not miss that opportunity. So what is it that makes a creative good? So you want a high click-through rate, a good amount of installs, post-install metrics, retention, and you also want to combat the high costs that are still increasing in the advertising space. Now, what it is that you want out of your creative strategy then? So you want your creative strategy to be measurable, to be mathematical, and to have high win rate. Now, considering you also have a high failure rate of creatives and the high fatigue, your creatives should be tested in high volume. Quite a lot of people, nice. Since you also want to have a channel-specific strategy, you would want to leverage AI and automation to help you with that. So the purpose of your creatives, the production and the testing process should be in such a way that it allows for a cadence of creatives which are new and which will be viable creatives to be produced and delivered before your ads have fatigued. Now that I gave so many numbers, let's look at some obstacles. So high creative fatigue, we talked about that already, especially on social channels, some more than others, such as TikTok. There are easy or easier things and not as costly that you can do. For instance, your volume-based testing, having a creative automation partner who will help you with testing. Then you also want to drive real value from your creatives. That comes with the fact that some creatives, such as your influencer creatives, come at about $1,000 per creative plus the testing costs. So the way you test creatives is really going to determine how much value you're going to get out of it. Then you have your time and budget constraints. You want to test your creatives fast because you need deliverables, right? And then you have budget constraints. Your budget is usually much smaller for testing than you would like it to be. Then you have the creative implementation testing on iOS. So we have issues with how many campaign IDs you have, how many thresholds you need to pass, and that all works against your experimentation. An easy way to challenge this is to do creative testing on Android and implement almost all of it into iOS. Now you can also tailor your creatives to the type of the audience that you need. So your creatives will be different based on if it's a retargeting campaign, user acquisition campaign. Same for geo-specific and channel-specific creatives. You need localization in order to break into certain markets. Not all of your learnings from one channel will be transferable to another. Then you have your competitor ads, and if they would work for you, easy way to solve this is to run them through a tagging system to see which tags those creatives respond to. Those are things you can then use in your advertising as well. And testing and setup, and then your channel algorithm. So you have a lot of view managers, everyone tests differently. Then there are algorithms that draw traffic this way or that way, how impressions are delivered. So all of that works against you having a consistent bank of creatives. But we will now look at the things you can do. So now that I've given quite a lot of obstacles, let's look at some opportunities. There is a big opportunity, and I personally believe in it a lot, is automation. So not only it helps you with predictive analytics, it also helps you with producing creatives. If you have a partner, such as, for instance, we partner with Blackbox, an automation and AI partner that also helps with creative automation. So They would run your creatives through tagging to see if you're delivering actual business value. They can do the same for your competitor creatives. You can also produce creatives within about 10 and 15 minutes, changing and putting pieces together on color, on fonts, on taking different pieces from your already existing creatives and making them into a creative that's supposed to be your best performer. Then you have your tiered testing strategy. So a lot of us used to, some still do, test creatives in A/B testing setup or split setup. There's a better way. We will talk about what it is. Then there is innovation. You have your influencer creatives, your playables. You can also make playable influencer creatives. Those give you a great range of creatives. It's not just iterations and it's not just gameplay. You can mix and match different types of creatives. We'll also talk about more what creatives you can try to produce. Then there's a feedback loop that you would like to have between UA team and creative team. So in order for the creative team to produce iterations and innovative creatives for you, your UA team will need to supply them with information of creatives, which worked, which didn't. Then they can brainstorm together why and so forth. Then you can also add an outsourced team to your in-house creative team. So considering the volume that you need of creatives in order to have a high win rate when you are testing, you would want to potentially outsource creatives from companies like Fanbytes, for instance, that produce influencer creatives, because those take longer time to produce, or playable creatives, such as Craftsman, for instance. Now that I've talked so much, I am going to actually show you an ad that I enjoy. But first, the concept. So these two prove to be the winning or produce more winners than other concepts. So your first concept is your bread and butter. It is your gameplay ad. You want to start off with a bang of sorts. You want to give them a big win or a big bonus, have authentic gameplay. I would say do not make your ad more than 10 to 15 seconds, even though the rule is 15 to 30. Unless it's a influencer ad, having it so long with just gameplay potentially gives the drop-off to your audience. And also the recent studies show that your audience is only engaged for the first 2 seconds. From my testing, I found that it to be 3 to 5 seconds, but that still gives you a little window to make an impact in a way that you want. Now, what you want them, other than short and simple, is to have a logo throughout. There is often that people scroll through, they forget what it is, and they've never seen your logo, they can't remember what app it was for, even though they like the ad and would like to come back to the app. Now, you either want to have text or audio. I would suggest both. Again, recent studies show that, for instance, on TikTok, where I didn't think that would be the case, almost all generations, so all users of all ages, have their audio on. And the percentage of those users is bigger than the 3 next platforms. The second ad, I will show it first, because I think I've talked a lot. Now, this is an ad I came across because the algorithm decided this is the ad for me, and it is correct. I do watch this influencer. And I apologize for the name of the game. That was the only ad she produced in this way.
Hey guys, are you bored in the house and in the house bored? Well, I found this drinking game where you can expose your friends and yourself. It's kind of intense. The app's called Da Fuck. It's so easy to play. Let me show you how. First, you choose your card pack. You can choose from 8 packs. NSFW, Chilled Appetizer, New Year's Eve, Truth or Dare, Brazzers, Hick, Bring Your Own Booze, and Confessional. I selected all of them because it's more juicy. Next, you add your victims, and then you start answering the cards. For example, spit out your first 3 random thoughts. Food, chocolate, my ex, I don't know. Give 3 excuses not to split the bill at a restaurant. I've got a few. You can also get cards like this, which basically makes people drink. And trust me, it works. So what are you waiting for? Go play Da Fuck.
Okay. The ad is good for a few things. So it does have your gameplay, or a way that this app is shown to be used by users. You have an influencer, engages the user, gives it a good impression. And then you have something that I really enjoy, and there are a lot of ways to iterate this. For the influencer, for a person, to show the users how to use the app. So she went on to the store, she downloaded the app, she showed you exactly where to go, what to do. It is simple, and potentially a lot of us stay away from that because you already have gameplay ads. But the simpler your ad is, most of the time, the better it is. And just because you're producing different types of creatives doesn't mean you shouldn't produce them in volume.
Hey guys.
I'll show you guys 2 more because I don't want this to sound like a monologue. So There is an influencer ad, which I thought is really great. This is from Product Madness, where I work. And then there's a gameplay ad, and then we will talk about the value of both.
Dude, what are you doing?
I'm playing the slots.
Why don't you just try the Cashmere Casino app? It's so much better.
Cashmere Casino app.
Mm-hmm.
This is crazy. All right. Play all your favorite games like Buffalo Gold, Dragon Links, and Wicked Winnings for that authentic slots experience. The Cashmere Casino app has a 2 million welcome coin bonus with hundreds of slot games to choose from, a daily wheel with huge virtual prizes, and free coins every 15 minutes.
Every 15 minutes?
Yeah. So, enough with the gimmicks. Download the Cashmere Casino app for free and start playing today.
I'm gonna need my free coins every 15 minutes.
You can see why the metrics on your upper funnel are very good. They're quite engaging ads. So the second ad, bread and butter of the industry. So unless you play social casino apps, you probably felt like this was a bit boring. It is a simple ad. It works really well. So your user-generated content is very valuable in a way that not only gives you higher engagement, it provides you a point of validation, and it also multiplies the user base because those who follow the influencer will also see your ad, which wouldn't necessarily have been the case beforehand. However, they are more expensive. They give you a dependency on an agency and or an influencer, and they have a lower win rate. The gameplay ads, on the other hand, have high lower funnel metrics. So these are your revenue metrics that normally we look at. There is less dependency, there is less cost, and they have a high win rate. Does that make your influencer ads less valuable? No. It's more of a mathematical problem. So if you have, from our testing, 20 ads that are influencer-based, you'll have one winner out of those. But if you have 12 ads that are gameplay ads, you will also have one winner. So it's more of a volume that you will need to produce out of influencer ads and the iterations and the amount that you need to test in order to get higher winner rate. You can also look at reducing the cost from influencer ads and their quality, but that's a harder problem to tackle if you're looking at it that way. Now that I've given all the examples, I have to go back to my monologue, I'm afraid. So this is about testing. So I hope most of us still are not testing in A/B testing methods. But A/B testing, for a few reasons, is not my favorite way to test. For creative testing, there are other ways that you can implement split tests, which are very useful. From my experience, A/B tests are slow, inexpensive, inconvenient, the sample size issue, and then there is a selection issue. Not only they give you a higher CPMs, and with higher CPMs, your CPIs and CPAs go up. Those creatives put in a A/B test are meant to be assessed against each other. That's not necessarily what you want, because the algorithm that Facebook uses and others are similar. The diversion of traffic happens in real time. So the algorithm is done in such a way that it will put more traffic and more impressions towards the creatives that it believes is the best creative. That's rarely the case. And that means that the rest of your creatives will change the audience as they are in testing. That means that the response that you're getting on those creatives might not have necessarily happened under a normal circumstance. Now, that kind of makes it arbitrary to test in A/B test. Other than high increasing costs, the diversion of traffic also means that a lot of your creatives will be started out of impressions. And just because the winning creative was decided by the algorithm, that does not necessarily mean that it will be a winning creative, just based on algorithm drawing the impressions on a historical data. Now, there are uses to this. A/B testing is great if you want to find the type of audience that you want to target, if you want to decide on a user behavior, or if you want to test a variable within your creative, a single variable that you want to test in split test. Now, those can be upper funnel variables, such as color and text, or lower funnel variables, such as offers or promotions in the game. if you have enough budget, a good sample size, enough time to get statistically significant results, this is a wonderful way to do this. The iceberg picture is more of a what we know versus what we don't know. So the top of the iceberg is the things that you can change within the algorithm. The lower funnel is proprietary information, and the algorithm mostly works off of that. So there isn't as much control as you would like, and then split tests make it worse. But there is a way to do creative testing that I believe gives you more statistically significant results and better win rates. So what you would like to do to start off is to find your upper funnel metric. That can be anything that you believe resonates with your creatives and allows you to eliminate quite a high number of creatives, so you're only ending up with more winners as you progress through the phases. So there is a debate whether it's IPM or CVR. Both metrics are good. There are others too. So if you want your creative to have high click-through rate but not lose on the CDR, because that makes it clickbait, IPM accounts for that. It is costly, however, because you will need about 100 to 150 installs in order to assess the performance. Now, the CVR can be assessed with just 100 to 150 clicks. So if you're looking at clicks versus installs, you're saving quite a lot of time and money. But there is a caveat with using a CVR. So you would want then to look at the aggregated CVR and make sure it matches your standard average CVR. It will save you time and money, but it's not as accurate. Now that you've done your first round of testing, you would want to then use your revenue metrics, your lower funnel metrics, in order to make sure that you're judging the creatives that will scale and give you good performance. So whether it's ARPU, depositor percentage, ROAS, anything that you are using for your revenue metrics, you can implement here. It is going to be a costlier phase because you're going to need about 100 to 150 conversions per creative in order to make sure that it's scalable and the performance is stable. And you will need to test in broad targeting. I'll give you an instance. So if you're using ARPU and you're using a lookalike high purchase value audience, that's not going to be the average ARPU that you're going to see from these creatives with different types of audience. Now, there are other phases which you may implement, but you don't need to. Phase 3 is comparing your creatives. You would take your top performance and pit them against each other to see which one is the most scalable. That comes at an extra cost, so that's not a necessary stage. And then there's a fourth stage. If you are working with an automation partner, they will be able to help you with all of those, but particularly the last one. So your fourth stage is getting a ranking on which of your creatives, either from phase 2 or phase 3, are gonna be high, medium, or low probability of scale. Because you would want your creatives to be assessed on how are they going to work long term, how much budget you can put behind them, and how much are they going to win for you. So you wouldn't want to rely on just one user that spent well in your game. Now, I will give you guys a reprise from my talking for a bit more. There's another ad I would like to show you. But then there are also other things you can test. Now that we went through testing, let's look at what we can test. This is not an exhaustive list. There are a lot more things you can look at, like localized creatives or your competitors' creatives. But looking at these things, so you can test influencer creatives in UCG. Obviously, they're breaking the fourth wall, something that has been done in TV series quite a lot, that people do enjoy because it helps with engagement, impressions. Then you can complement that with a playable. So that's something that Rovio does, for instance, very well. You use your influencer creative, you make it into a playable. It ticks both boxes. You get an interactive, engaging ad, and you allow the users to play that game without actually downloading it. Then you have your CGI creatives. They are usually higher cost, but very high value, very high spec creatives that you can also outsource. Make a story out of the characters, get the player engaged. Tutorial creative, something that we saw just earlier. The simpler, the better, to be fair with those creatives. Get them to show the user how to download the app, how to play it, any features that you want to highlight. It kind of gives you an engaging content, not necessarily showing a user's face. You can just use a hand guide, a different point of view. Then there's your character-led creative. So use a character or make up a character. Everyone is familiar with a pig that is in a coin master. Also helps with your brand awareness. Users start to care about those creatives. They get them drawn into and retaining more in the game. And then you have your AI-generated creatives or avatar creatives. So this will give you a personalized user-generated content without having an influencer. So those characters or portraits of users can be anime, sci-fi based. They can be realistic, like in here. You basically input your text and you get the icon of a person to say whatever it is you're saying. Helps you with localization because it translates the text automatically and gives you points when you're creative tagging. So let's look at this one.
Choose your lucky buffalo. I'm going to pick the brown buffalo. It almost hit me. Let's go for a spin. 5 matching coins. Let's ride on the Cash Express luxury train. So many rewards. I won 300,000 coins. I'm going to install Heart of Vegas right now.
I hope you're as excited about this as I am. And the last thing is the player motivation. So I dedicated a separate slide to this. I'll show you another creative that is from our own experimentation with this. So what you would like to use this type of behavioral testing is to narrow down your audience. It will improve your targeting, it will also give you a creative diversity. So there are 8 personas here. Not all of them will apply to you. Most likely only 2 or 3 will apply to you, and then 1 will be the leading reason why people associate with your game and why they like playing it. So there's an expressionist. Obviously, they're high on a scoreboard. They're looking at this as part of their identity, like puzzle games. Then there are King of the Hill. They're there to master a skill. They want to be the best. It's all about the competition. The networker, they're using this more as a social activity. They play with their friends, or they find a community online to play with. The skill master, strategic thinker, they like things to improve their skill. And then there is a strategist. Those usually play solo. They play games that help with their cognitive skills. A thinker, those who like role-playing games, also playing with the community. There is a thrill seeker. They're more into adventure-based games, high adrenaline. And then there are the treasure hunters. They are the explorers. They like to collect items, and they usually retain your game quite a lot. So those creatives don't need to be very complicated, depending on what it is that you have in your game that you can associate with each personality type that you want to test. You can make them quite simple, as we did. And the last thing it is that I do want to show, not the last thing, that was just something, I talked a lot about things that I would like to implement. This is a thing that I wouldn't like to implement, so please don't make your ads clickbait, represent your game as it is. This is a post from Reddit. Thank you, Reddit, for this beautiful image. Okay, last thing, the creative AI. So I talked a lot about automation, tagging. There are quite a few uses that you can get if you are partnering with an automation partner. So other than predictive analytics that they can help you with, not just in your creative strategy, but overall, they can also help you create the ads. So this is an example of our ad, for instance, that was created by our partner, Blackbox. So they took pieces of different ads that they believe were the most resonating to the audience. They give us a dimension, color, the tags, duration, border, everything. Basically, the creative was made by them in about 15 minutes. That helps greatly if you want to improve your cost and time that you spend on creatives, and also free up the time of your creative team so they can focus on innovation instead of iterations, for instance. And then there is another thing that they can help you with is asset tagging. So the second image that you see is assets that we run through for influencer tags. So there are quite a lot of distracting tags. There is clothing, plant, vegetation. These are not necessarily the tags that you would want, because this is how the algorithm will decide where they're putting your creatives and which audience sees them. So when I say simpler, the better, it's mostly because the algorithm will tag parts of your creatives and it will then give it to a certain audience that is more or less likely to resonate with your creatives. So this is more about getting a business value out of everything. That doesn't mean you shouldn't experiment. There are tons of creatives that are done really well, that are tagged really well. You can also use this for your competitor tags. So the same things can be done. Pick a creative that you believe is good from your competitors. You can run them through the tagging and see which tags there are and if they will be useful for you. So creative AI and just AI and automation in general is already everywhere, from pop songs to paintings to architecture. And it's already in your algorithms, not just products like AAA in Facebook, same product in TikTok. There's a lot that we don't necessarily know or have influence over in your advertising strategy. So this may just give you some more power over how you're delivering creatives and where you're delivering them. And that is all. Thank you.
So if I could understand, you are not using fake ads at all?
No.
And you...
I don't recommend doing it.
But did you try?
Potentially.
Okay, but maybe do you have more arguments? Because I have different approach and it's kind of successful for us. So why?
Don't you see users dropping out of when your attention suffering?
Because our games is kind of good, so our fake ad is not.
How fake is your ad?
You can.
Is that the same like a picture that I?
Of course that no, but I think that if you are not using, you have to try to use it and to analyze your attention and to see how everything is going on.
Well, a few things. From our testing, fake ads, and that was a while ago, the users drop off because you're not representing your game as you are meant to. The users click on your ad because they think that is the game that they're getting. And secondly, you're opening up yourself to a liability because this is not the game that you are offering the user. So in my experience, no. But if that approach works for you, why not?
And what kind of channels do you use for testing ads?
We test them on all, but the tier strategy that I talked about, we use on social channels. We use them on Facebook and TikTok for now. They are looking to expand to even programmatic and others, but social channels are the easiest for you to test your creatives on. And not all of them, but 50% and upwards of those that you've tested on your social channels will work for your other channels, and it's better than not testing.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask about how long creatives live and about lifelong period about good creative.
Okay. Will depend on the creative. In gameplay creatives, I would say it's a month and a half, sometimes it's 2. That will also depend on the vertical that you're in. Gaming creatives are not necessarily the best representation. Yours could last longer. In terms of influencer creatives, CGI creatives, those are shorter, I would say up to a month.
How often do you renew creative? Or maybe scaling?
Yeah, we don't have a set timing. When you are seeing that your creative has peaked and the performance is going down, within a day you swap those creatives out. If the creative keeps on performing, and sometimes there are flukes and it performs for 2-3 months, they are rare. But usually you know the timeline and you are checking your creatives every once in a while. So as soon as you see even 0.5% drop, it's worth changing those creatives already.
Okay, thank you.
And how many creatives do you test? Usually, what's the number?
A very big number. Yeah. I advocate for volume testing because we test quite a lot in volume. Up to 1,000 creatives a month.
1,000?
Yes. Wow. And then we do iterations on those.
And what's the winning rate?
So when we first started the tiered creative strategy, it was about 15%. Then we changed up the model about 3 or 4 times, and now it's about 28%. So when you start your tiered testing strategy, you are going to need to make changes based on the creatives that you're delivering, based on the channel that you are testing in, and then just optimizing the model for it to work better.
Wow. And how do you test 1,000 of creatives? So I guess you invested a lot of budget.
So when you start testing, you will understand what it is the budget that you need, depending on the metrics that you're using, whether it's clicks or installs that you are looking at, whichever revenue metrics that you are looking at. You will understand what's the threshold that you need. For instance, you might not need 100 installs. Maybe you're seeing your CVR, for instance, stabilize at 20 or 30. And then when you eliminate a lot of creatives in phase 1, because phase 1 is to make sure that you're only testing the creatives that you believe in phase 2. And phase 2 is more expensive than phase 1. You can also partner with an automation partner. We work with Blackbox. There are a lot of them, Smartly.io, Allison. They will run those for you at a very quick and very efficient way.
Okay. Now I get that even more your presentation, because 1,000 of creatives is crazy.
Yes.
Thank you.
No problem.
Hi, thanks a lot for the presentation. This was really interesting. I have really 2 quick questions. First, how to define the starting pool of concepts to start from the scratch, for example. I've seen like gameplay, all these concepts, how to start with them. And second question, how to predict the best scalable creative for the future, to iterate. Thanks.
So the first question is about the whole ideation process, or which type of creative you want to start with?
How to define just concepts. Not to create creatives by the concepts. How to define these concepts from scratch for any product.
If you're just starting, start with gameplay creatives or anything that is representative of your game. The gameplay is just the most important sequence that you want to show the users. These are cheapest, most efficient, and you can iterate them really quickly, whether you're using automation or the creative team that you have. Go from there. I would say then go try influencer creatives, try influencer plus playable, because playables don't necessarily work on social channels, but they do work on programmatic channels, for instance. But if you do combine influencer and playable, that might help you break into the market. Do a lot of character-led creatives. They help you with branding as well as they help you with advertising. Try player personas, because if you understand the motivations between the users and why they're interacting with your ad, it will help you narrow down your targeting. I hope that was what you're looking for.
The problem, I have a VPN app. It's not like a game, it's rather a utility. And we are defined concepts, but there are like streaming, security, and I'm trying to understand if there any other approach to define concepts. So for gameplay looks obviously a bit, but other concepts are not obviously, like you've somehow found them.
Of course, you do market research, you have a look at what competitors are doing. You don't necessarily need to look in your vertical. Look at similar ones, look at even the different ones, because the influencer creatives were not part of social casino until we started them doing a year ago, and we saw them in some apps that weren't even close to being our competitors.
Got it. Thanks.
There was a second question, which I don't remember.
Just about prediction.
Oh, yes. So you can try to do it in-house with your data science or data analytics team. They might be able to build your model. Or you can go an easier, more effective route and ask your automation partner to do that for you.
Okay, good. Thanks a lot.
No worries. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining. If there is nothing else, I hope you have a great time today.